Alright, so this is going to be a quick walkthrough about my recreation for Automatic by Fly by Midnight. I'm going to A-B my instrumental versus the original reference first. I'm going to go through the bridge 1 to chorus 1, and you can keep track of the solo cue here as I A-B the two tracks.
I don't know where you're from, I don't care if automatic, sure you feel like magic, cinematic, and baby.
Awesome, so let's go through each track individually. I'm going to start with the guitar group and the first chorus, so I'll just solo that real quick. So what I noticed with these guitars is that there's a lot of harmonic excitation going on. So I use a lot of saturation and overdrive and distortions to really get that gritty sound. We could start with the straightforward guitar. And I'm going to unfreeze this track. Hopefully my CPU saves itself. And I have a pretty large processing chain here, and I'll try to get it through quickly, but I'm just using a Contact plugin for a guitar without any processing. It sounds like this. And these are just muted strings. Running through EQ. This compressor is not doing anything. I have a transient shaper with a lot of attack, taking some of that sustain away, making it a little bit more plucky. Saturation. More saturation. I'm running through an amplifier with a parallel chain. And so these two audio channels are going in parallel together. I'm running through a cabinet. I have a low pass filter taking off some of the high end. Some reverb. Just trying to automate, or not automate, adjusting the clip gain here. Adding a little bit more high frequencies. Some more low pass filtering. I added a tremolo to give it some more movement. I added a Haas effect. I'm just using the kilohertz plugin here, but there's different ways you can do that. Essentially, what the Haas effect does is take a single audio signal, and it will create two instances of that, one left and one right, and it will delay one slightly so it sounds like a really wide image. I'm going through some more compression, multi-band compression with OTT, a little EQ, and some overdrive. So once again, this is what the muted guitar sounds like. The next couple guitars are just arpeggios. I have two to the right and one pan to the left. These are what they sound like together. Oops. So they're quite similar. However, they are playing a different melodies. The one on the right, it's similar processing to what I had with the muted channel, lots of saturation, distortion, amplifiers, and this is what it sounds like by itself. And then duplicated the same track and just lowered it an octave. Or sorry, raised it an octave. And then I have one more guitar arpeggio to the left. Similar processing, but a slightly different melody. Again, all together, sounds like this. Awesome. So now let's go over the bass. It's pretty simple here. I just have a sub bass, which is a sine wave, a little bit of EQ, just taking out some of that mud frequency, and then some RMS compression, just making sure the levels are even. And I really wanted the sub just to take up the sub frequencies under 100, so I didn't want anything happening above that. I really wanted it to be more of a feel type of thing. And so I had to add another bass, which sounds like this. And this is less of a feel thing and more of what you actually hear. And essentially, what I have here is a saw wave cutting off some of that high end, and I am making a unison choice here with 7 voices and spreading those voices out, so it's not a single mono signal, cutting off some of the low frequencies so it doesn't interfere with the sub. Some saturation, again with RMS compression, just making sure the levels are the same. And then I added a tremolo similar to that muted guitar, with just a 4th rate, kind of just giving it some movement. Perfect. So I'm gonna play the drums next. Awesome. So this is what the kick sounds like. And the only processing I have here is just an SSL channel, which is a little different than just a regular EQ. It's less transparent. It gives it some additional signal. And what I have here is a very aggressive EQ and the sub frequency around 60, giving it some more thump, boosting an attack frequency around the same area, as well as the transient part of the kick around 1.3 kilohertz. And I'm also doing some compression around 3 decibels of gain reduction, just making it a little bit more thumpy or punching, as it would. This is the snare. And I have a similar thing, just another SSL channel with some EQ and compression. And then I also added a snare white noise layer just to make it a little bit more full. And that sounds like this. It's very subtle, but I wanted to make the snare sound a little bit fuller. This is what the hat sounds like. Again, I have another SSL channel. Not doing any EQ here, and I'm just doing some compression. Again, making it a little bit more put together and a little spikier. And for the hi-hat, I'm alternating between velocities. So we have a 0 decibel going to a negative 17, and that gives it that alternating pattern back and forth. I have some crash cymbals here, and then we have the orchestra transitions that sound like this. Processing wise, nothing really special. Actually, didn't even do anything. I just pulled these samples from the Cashmere pack, and they're really just low orchestra instruments to make the transitions a little nicer. For the synths, this is what they sound like. For the main synth here, I just used Anna as my synthesizer, and it's just a detuned saw wave, essentially, with a little bit of release. I'm going through an audio chain here. It's just another parallel chain with some reverb, some compression, the OTD for some multi-band compression. Give me a little extra grit. Also adding some saturation as well. Then I wanted to fill out the space a little bit more, so I just added the sound. And similar to that low bass sound, it's just gonna be a saw wave with some unison, 7 voices, spreading it out a little bit. I added a tremolo with 8th notes, some more saturation, the Haas effect, making it a little bit wider, and some reverb. And then again, just trying to fill out some more space, I added some tonal groups to sound like this. And these are all in the key of A flat major. And I just found these in different sample packs. Adding some RMS compression, some tremolo again to give it some movement, saturation, overdrive actually, and I'm just adjusting the clip gain here and the pan for about 17 to the left. Again, similar processing here. And then we can go over the group processing real quick. So for the drums and for most of my groups, I'm just running through a virtual mix bus on the Brit 4K G setting. And then I am using an EQ, and I'm slightly boosting that sub frequency of the kick around 60 hertz, and as well as 10 kilohertz. And then I'm running that through another parallel chain just to give it a little bit more presence in the mix. And we have 2 signals here, the dry signal, and then this is going through a very, very heavy saturation, which sounds like this. Does not sound like that, it sounds like this. So very aggressive. I'm adjusting the clip gain, so making sure that the signal is loud enough going through the saturator here. And I'm really just smashing it. And then that's going into a compressor, making sure that the peaks are all level, everything is the same, and cutting off some of that nasty frequencies past 10 kilohertz. And then I'm just blending it into taste with the 2 tracks that sound like this. It's very subtle, but just gives it a little bit more presence in the mix. Bass group, again, I just have a virtual mix bus, giving some more color. And then for side chaining to the kick and snare, rather than side chaining to the entire signal for the kick and snare, I'm choosing to use a dynamic EQ for the transients, so we can listen to how that sounds all together. If my CPU lets me. But when the kick is hitting the bass, this frequency to the left will duck on that kick transient. Then I also found the snare transient, and it's doing the same thing. When the snare hits, it's ducking a little bit, giving it some more space. And that is the bass group. My guitar group is the same thing. I have a virtual mix bus and 2 of the sidechain compressions. Synths is the same. Tone groups is the same. I'm just adding a glue compressor, making all the ambient sounds sound similar to each other or tied together, cutting out some of that mud, and adding a little bit of reverb, making it sound cohesive. And then finally, I have some VSTs on the mix bus itself. This is running through True Iron, which is a very subtle saturation. Again, another virtual mix bus with some drive. I'm adding a little bit of air and some high frequencies, some more high frequencies, a little bit of the low, giving it that smiley cue. The glue compressor, which is just holding the track together, making sure that the transients aren't sticking out too much. Some very slight imaging, where I'm making the higher frequencies a little wider and everything under 100, very close to all mono. And then again, running through that smiley EQ, boosting some of the lows, boosting some of the highs, and just making the track sound as close as I can to the reference. So I'm gonna play it back just one more time.
I don't know where you're from, I don't care. The way you talk, the way you feel. Gotta have it, shit, you feel like magic. God, I love the way you talk, the way you feel, baby.
Perfect. So hopefully that was helpful. Hopefully you learned something as well. And thank you.